is called arbitrary. So that concept of arbitrariness. It's important to remember this at this stage because later we will transpose arbitrariness into different modes of sensations. So we just keep the term arbitrariness with us. So that first one was the semiotic theory of Ferdinand de Saussure. This one is the theory of Charles Sanders Peirce. He's an American semiotician, an original thinker, and he considers actually it's not a dyad of signifier and signified, but it is a triad. There are three components in it, in a sign. The first one is called a representament, or otherwise sometimes he calls this a sign vocal. What is a representament? For example, you look at a tree and then the shape of the foliage, the shape of the trunk, all fall into your retina. So part of the tree, it's not the content of the tree, not the fruits. From far, you are only able to make out this is a tree by the foliage, by the trunk, by the shape it carries. So that tree is a representament or a sign vocal. Part of it becomes a sign. That is the meaning, representament. It is not a representation, but part of a representation. That is why it's called a representament. Okay. And then that connects with the idea of the tree in the head, in the brain. There is an idea of the tree in the mind. Okay. They are connected by what is called an interpretant. Somebody has to interpret, or somebody has to feel, okay, this means this shape, this color means a tree. So that connecting relationship is called an interpretant. So this shape, this color represents a tree. So the idea of the tree in the mind is the object. Then the color is the representament, the shape is the representament, and the interpretation that you give to connect the two is called the interpretant. So this is called the Peircean triad of semiotics. As you might have seen, that Peirce deals with general semiotics outside language. Saussure deals only with language. So that is the fundamental difference between the two. And then as you learn more about this, you will find there are widening gaps between the two. So the next idea is we are discussing is transmodality. Modes means modes are sensorial modalities. Modes are the sight mode, the smell. So these senses, their capacities are called modalities of sensation. Okay. So to understand what Saussure said with regard to other sensations, those of you who know psychology will know these terms that I have written below. Distal stimuli. Is there anyone among you who is from psychology? Anybody has gone through psychology classes? Can you all hear me? I don't get any answers.
No, we can hear.
Yes, Father. We are not familiar with psychology, but as part of our MA syllabus, we have a paper called ELT. And as part of ELT, we have come across certain terms from psychology like behaviorism, cognitivism. So we are aware of the term stimuli.
Okay,
Only
okay,
that much we know.
okay. Now, distal stimuli means for the tree. In semiotics, we call this the referent. The tree itself is called the distal stimuli. Okay, something that is far away from your body, distant from your body, is called the distal stimuli, or in this case, in semiotics, the signifier. Or I know the referent. And then the second one is the proximal stimuli. Proximal stimuli means what you feel on your body. For example, the shape of the tree falls into the retina of your eye. That image is called the proximal stimuli. For example, there is a fire a little far, and then you feel the heat on your hand. The heat is the proximal stimuli, fire is the distal stimuli. So singular is stimulus, proximal. Okay. Now what happens in interesting thing happens at this level. It's called transduction. Transduction is the process in which a proximal stimuli is converted into electrochemical messages to the brain. This is what we call transduction. All semiotics, all linguistic semiotics will come to a dead end with transduction. All language, all sight, all feelings will be converted into electrochemical codes. Codes are science, semiotics. And so there is a department that studies these. This is called zoosemiotics, semiotics of the animals. And that is studied also biosemiotics. There are eminent thinkers and leaders in this thought like Terence Deacon from Berkeley University, California, San Francisco, or Kalevi Kul from the Tartu school. So you have different people working on biosemiotics, zoosemiotics in this area. So it's good to remember what this transduction is. According to this Persian perspective, all language is but a metaphor. You cannot find a language that is not a metaphor. Everything is a metaphor because every word stands for an idea that is in the brain. And so, but all these at one moment becomes electrochemical symbols. We go now to clarify the term semiosis. Are you familiar with this, the differences between semiotics and semiosis? Can I have someone respond?
No,
Yes,
Father, I
Father.
have.
Okay. Okay. Semiotics is the discipline, the name of the discipline, the study that is done on science. The word comes from Greek semeios, means sign. Okay. Semiotics is the discipline. Semiosis means the process of the production of science. How we produce science is called semiosis. Okay. I put these terms clearly just to connect you with the say the original title of the talk that I mentioned to you. Okay. So semiosis is the process of the production of science. Okay. Now that question I have left below: how is meaning production taking place? How is meaning created in the brain? This is the question that semiotics continuously inquires. So Saussure C.S. Peirce tells there are three ways a meaning can be created in the mind. These are called icon, index, symbol. Are you familiar with these terms? Anyone familiar with these terms?
Father.
This talks about how an object outside creates a meaning in the brain. So the first one is icon. The first one is a picture of an apple. It is easily understood. The reason is the similarity. When a meaning is created by similarity, this is called an icon. Sometimes meaning is created by indices. Index, indices. Plural of index is indices. Okay. What is an index? You find smoke, and smoke is intrinsically connected with fire. And so you find smoke and you tell, oh, there is fire. Index regularly found in our usage are the dials in the cars. They are intrinsically connected. For example, there is a heat gauge. There is a heat dial on the car in the dashboard, and then that tells when the heat of the engine increases, the indicator needle will move higher and higher. They are intrinsically connected. When the needle moves to a higher number, we understand that the temperature of the car, of the engine, is going up. So this is called index. We make a meaning through indexes. Third one is a symbol. Symbols are things that are not connected with the meaning at all. No intrinsic connection. So all language, every word. There is no connection between tree, the sound tree, and the tree itself. So in Chinese, you call for a tree shoe. In Hindi, it is bird. And so you can use any word. These words are decided by convention, by linguistic acceptance among a group of people. And so there are no permanent relationships with this. So this is how Peirce divides the science. There are different other divisions. One more I will come to. Okay. So all the language that Saussure is talking about is only the symbolic relationship and not the other two. Okay. So even when these are iconic, indexical, and symbolic, there are certain qualities that will link to the meaning in the mind. These signifiers will have, or representamen will appeal to the idea in the mind by its qualities. So these are called quali-signs. Quali-signs coming from the word qualia. Qualia of an object is considered to be the color, the shape, the density. These are called qualia. Okay. So things that are appealing to your mind by the qualities, they are called quali-signs. Now, why did I deal with the sensorial modalities comes here. You find these terms that I am using, these are terms that I coined in the process of my research. Because when a representamen appeals to your eye and creates a meaning, that kind of representamen I call Vidhi sign. The meaning that is created from or representment based on your vision is called V design. Also, when a meaning is created through your auditory sense, we call this O design. When a tacti sign is something when a meaning is created. For example, for a blind person, when they run through the Braille script with their fingers, a meaning is created. So these are called tacti signs. O design, a signifier appealing to the nose of the interpreter, when, to your chemical senses. You call this O design. I used this term from the Latin root of odor, means smell. Okay. The fifth one is daily sign. Daily sign is the sign that is a meaning understood to you through your taste. There are other possible words, but I chose daily sign because of the English connection with the delicacy. Delicious, coming from the taste.
It's Colloquia.
And the last one is hapti sign. Hapti sign is a combinatorial signifier, meaning you touch something and then you feel, you also move your hand. For example, you move your hand on the top of a laptop, closing your eyes, and you have some kind of an understanding that this is a laptop. So that sensation is called hapti sign. Haptics is a very special department of studies in artificial intelligence. I'm also working in that department a little bit. Okay. The last term we need to clarify is about affordances. Affordance simply means the possibilities offered. Okay. What do I mean by this affordance? If the link between the signifier and the can you smell and understand? What you hear, can you feel and understand? This is the question. If we are able to understand them exactly the same way, we call this sensorial modality arbitrariness. So this is my question, my inquiry that I did in semiotics. Okay. So if there is an arbitrariness, what that means in practical life. So these are the questions that I inquired in that paper that I sent to you. Did you all read that paper? I'm not sure. Did you take some time to read the paper? Did somebody get time to read the paper?
Yes, Father.
Okay.
Yes, Father.
Okay. Thank you. So, so the inquiry is about what that, if there is an arbitrariness, what does it offer in practical life? So the question of arbitrariness is succinctly placed by this problem called the Molyneux's dilemma, Molyneux's problem. What is Molyneux's problem? Molyneux, a thinker, a contemporary of John Locke, he wrote to Locke, if a man were to be blind and he felt an object by hand and recognized it, for example, a pen felt by hand, and then imagine that he gets sight after some time, will he recognize the pen without touching, only by sight? This is the Molyneux's dilemma. Locke said it is not possible. But these were philosophical questions until 10 years back. This renowned Professor Pavan Sinha did an experiment on a visually impaired child. This child was congenitally visually impaired, blind. And then he recorded some of the objects that the child identified by touching. And then there was a retinal transplant. The child received sight. And after receiving sight, the child looked at these objects and the child did not recognize. Now, that brought to challenge a huge question in philosophy called the unity of object experience. Is there unity of consciousness? Is the question. For example, a bird chirps, and for example, a parrot. It makes a sound, and then you see the parrot, and you understand that it is the same bird. But are those images forming one object in the brain is the question. And this Pavan Sinha's experience, the experiment, suddenly brought to light these unity of object is made only by co-occurrences. If the sound and the vision comes together, you will have this idea brought together in the mind. Otherwise, vision keeps its own memory, and the vision is when you see your sight is recorded in the back of the mind. It's processed in the back of the brain. Okay, it's called the occipital cortex or the visual cortex, but in the occipital region of the brain, there is a little part. This part you have the temporal region of the brain, and then on that there is a small segment called the fusiform gyrus. That part is particularly engaged in identifying faces. If that part is affected, you will not identify faces. There are some interesting stories about, for example, there is a sickness called prosopagnosia. It's interesting that a person is not able to identify the mother, a close person, by sight after getting injury to this part of the brain. And then he immediately recognizes, if the mother talks, oh, this is my mother. But when he sees the face, he is not able to identify. So there are very, very interesting anomalies in the brain when parts of the brain is affected. So they deal with this one thing called unity of object experience. Is there unity of consciousness? And that question has been answered by the experiment of Pavan Sinha. This has been a debate among philosophers for centuries. And here was an answer by a very simple experiment. From here, my journey went to interdisciplinary spaces, because from here semiotics goes into psychology, into neuroscience, into cognitive science, and I had to move. So I moved from the other parts of semiotics, like discourse analysis, the synonyms and the paradigms. I left them there. The structure of language, structure of stories, I left there. And then I started moving to this interdisciplinary space. So now I'm working with cognitive semiotics, neuroscience. Remember, I started like every one of you with literature. I had my background with psychology, definitely. But I started with English literature. And then I did my research on semiotics during my master's thesis. And then slowly I started my journey into hardcore semiotics. And that is where I was falling into neuroscience and cognitive semiotics. Yeah. So I am working on now sensory substitution. What is sensory substitution? Going further into arbitrariness and neuroscience, I reached to a concept used in neuroscience called neural plasticity. Neural plasticity is simply the ability of brain to learn new things, or the ability of the brain, neural cells, to modify itself structurally and functionally in the process of learning. And so a person who is blind, congenitally blind, what happens to the part of the brain that is used for sight, processing sight? So what happens is this cortex is, they call this recruitment, neural recruitment. So this part of the cortex is now used for processing other types of information, the auditory information, the haptic information, the tactile information. That is why we say they have additional capacity to listen and feel. This is narrated in neuroscience as neural plasticity. And so suddenly I understood that there is a connection between arbitrariness and neural plasticity. Arbitrariness is written in the neural structures. And so I started further research there and found that we can create meaning, we can swap information between sensorial modalities. So what you can hear, what you hear, you could also, you hear you hear the sound of a parrot or sound of a car, and you understand that is a car. You know, some people can even identify which brand car is making the sound. I cannot. Some people are able to. But you can know it also by vibrations. So that is one of the experiments that I am doing. Look at this. This is what I am doing. This is my lab experiments. Those wires are connected to small motors on the body. And what happens is, I code color. I put a camera and ask the camera to read the color. And that information is moved to a small computer. Those of you who are familiar with computer science will know Raspberry Pi. So it's moved to a Raspberry Pi, and then it will convert the color codes and even other items, other information into vibrations onto these motors. And the person is able to identify what color is coming, what shape is coming, what material is there in the camera. Well, this part of semiotics is called experimental semiotics itself. Yeah. I have talked so long. And so it's time for some questions from your side, just to make, just to have a feeling that I understand you. I'm stopping the sharing.
Father, you talked about the unity of object experience. So, what I would like to understand is, can we somehow relate the unity of object experience to the arbitrariness of sign?
Um, how are they connected is the question. Okay. Object unity. There is practically no object unity by sensorial modalities until there is co-occurrence. And therefore, if what you meant is connecting with the arbitrariness of science, for example, if I see a pen and I feel a pen, the images created in the brain are totally different. So is there complete arbitrariness? No complete arbitrariness. But there is functional arbitrariness. For example, to know what is the purpose of a pen, to write, and when you can feel it and you can use it for writing, it gives you a functional understanding of that object. You may not be able to see the color of the pen or the beauty of the pen, how it is designed and all. So is there absolute arbitrariness in cross modal or trans modal semiotics? No. But there is a qualified or a qualified arbitrariness is possible. Functional arbitrariness is what I term it. Yeah. Did I answer you? Thank you. Yeah. Other questions? Well, but if you want to ask questions slightly apart from this on general semiotics, I can discuss also on structuralism and things connected to it. We can discuss. Yeah.
Father, about that qualiscience, can you one more explain that concept?
Qualisign. Okay. An object is identified to by the mind by the qualities an object of an object. What are the qualities? For example, I have a pen drive here. This pen drive does not enter my mind. What enters my mind are, okay, the color, and then the total to the shape, the thickness. This is what enters my mind. And then I conclude that this is a pen drive. So when the qualities of an object is the reason for me to identify an object, then those qualities are called qualisigns. Okay. For example, this one, the thickness, the feel, even if I am blind, I can feel this. Why? It has a shape. I have felt the shape. I can feel the cameras, I can feel the screen, and then these qualities, the smoothness, the shape, they convey to me, these qualities convey to me that this is a mobile phone. When I recognize these objects by their qualities, and then I call this, or these are termed as qualisigns. It's easier to understand thinking about mango. You're blindfolded and you put a ripe mango in the mouth, and then the taste of the mango, suddenly you tell, ah, this is mango, or this is strawberry. It's that quality, the taste quality, that tells you that this is mango. In that case, you call this quali sign. Yeah.
Father, does the Sachs theory differ that much from the CSPS one?
Come again. Can you ask that slowly?
The Sachs theory that you mentioned,
Uh-huh.
does it differ a lot from the CSPS theory?
Peirce, as we discussed, I mentioned earlier, Peirce deals with general science, meaning this whole world is understood to mind only by science. Peirce is the one who said that there is only symbolic world. You don't understand anything without symbols. And so the theory of Peirce is foundational and a fundamental philosophy. Saussure has made only a language theory. But the concept of symbols in Peirce, C.S. Peirce, and the concept of the arbitrariness in language, they are the same. They in that part, they are well united. They have the same concept in general. Yeah.
Good evening, Father.
Good evening, Subin.
Yeah, I have a small doubt.
Yeah.
And actually, it was well presented, and it was easy for anyone to understand. The semiotics, the basics of semiotics, and you have it was made in such a way that you started from the very beginning, and you have ended at a big problem, right? Which you are researching on. And I should congratulate you for making it in such a beautiful manner. And my question is, towards the end, you said that there is, you can always change the sense, right? This is where you work on.
Right.
So my question is, if you want to change that, do you need some kind of education or training needed in the other senses for the object? I mean, your experiment. For example, one who has to understand, or one who has to has the knowledge of auditory sense, so that it can be replaced by the other one. What I mean is,
I get your question. Okay. I will explain to you this roundabout. My objective is to help people who are blind. Okay. So ultimate objective is to help blind people navigate without cane or without help from others. So this is okay. So naturally, I am using other sensorial modalities to swap. Okay. I'm not using the auditory because you have to listen to people speaking. So I'm using the vibrotactile, the skin capacity to sense vibrations. This is what I am using. And therefore, there is a learning period. You have to teach them this vibration means this is a car. This pattern of vibration means this is a bus. We have to teach. Just like you learn to read letters, when you learn to write A, E, the same way you have to teach them, because these are kind of alphabet. It's a language. But I am foreseeing usage of artificial intelligence in auto learning. So the computer can pick up a sign that is fresh. They find something new, and then computer will classify this, and then they will name this later, and then give an auditory cue and train the person for 5 or 6 times. Okay, this means this. So this can be done by artificial intelligence, which we are working with in my experiments. Yeah.
Thank you, Father. What I meant is, in language, language, there is innumerable possibility of creating. Right?
Correct.
Yeah, but in this system, as you have rightly pointed out, when there is something new which occurs, it will be very difficult for us, to make it, vibrate.
Correct. Language has innumerable possibilities, meaning 26 letters and its permutations are millions. Okay. On the canvas of a small body, the back of your body, you can create only so much vibration. So this will be functional. Okay, just functional. You cannot match. So that's why I said qualified arbitrariness. It's not absolute arbitrariness. Impossible to achieve absolute arbitrariness. Yeah.
Okay.
The computer can achieve it, but not the body cannot receive that much signals, that many signals. That is the issue. Body has shortage. Yeah. Thank you, Subin.
Thank you, Father.
Good evening. Good
Yes,
evening,
Suvarna.
Father.
Good evening, Suvarna.
I'm Suvarna, a research scholar of the English department.
Great.
So my question is not related to your research or the presentation as per. Just asking out of curiosity. We know that language and the new signs are formed out of a common experience. You need a common agreement, and you need years of common experience to produce a sign, so that we see a sign and people need to have the same sensor or same signified in their mind. For that we need a common experience, and for the past 2-3 years we have a common experience called the pandemic, the COVID pandemic. Do you think this pandemic has produced some common signs or new signs in our language, the signifiers and signified?
Interesting. Okay.
New kind of new arbitrary relations have. Do you think this pandemic had been capable of producing those relations?
Okay.
I was just curious. That's why I asked.
Okay. Right. Suvarna, this question falls right into discourse analysis. The pandemic discourse. Okay. Discourse deals with sets of or coda or many symbols created together. Okay. Pandemic has created a political conversation, political discourse. In the beginning,
Yeah, definitely.
there was economic discourse. When test kits were not available, it was available to the richer countries and not available to the poorer countries. It was creating a discourse. They were creating new semiotic connections. That something, even medicine could be used as a weapon. So we call this weaponizing medicines. Okay, weaponizing food. So new connections are, or new codes are new. We call this semiosis. New meanings are produced in this process. Okay. And of course, the small how you depict a corona. Poor thing, it seems like with your beautiful colors. I started looking at these pictures with all the colors. Why should you hate corona? It is so beautiful. Well, but people start talking about corona in different ways. Yeah, so they have definitely created different discourses and meanings. Yeah, you're right.
Do you think that's a possible research area? I mean, like the pandemic?
For semiotics, definitely, yeah, it can go on. For example, how the pandemic affected the discourse between nations, between communities, and then the new symbols that were created on the mobile phones about
Yeah.
safety standards. Okay, so a lot of new systems were created. Also, quarantine and all the related processes of quarantine and how they are indicated by small symbols. In Macau, this is amazing. If you are safe, you will have purple color on your mobile phone on a QR code. If you are half safe, you will have yellow color. If you are safe, you will have a green color. And then it is available on everyone's mobile phone. You go to any public place, you have to show this. So it creates symbols. It creates its own symbolism. Yeah. Good question.
Here we have color codes for rain alerts, not for corona. Yellow alert, red alert.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you, Father.
Yeah. It creates its own language. Yeah. Corona has created its own language. Yeah.
Thank you.
If any other participants want to ask some questions, they can ask them now. Father, I don't think there are any more questions.
Okay.
So now I invite Suvarna to make the vote of thanks.
Okay.
Good evening, Father. Good evening, Sister. Good evening, Sumin sir, and all the other fellow members of the English department. So, first of all, let me make a confession. As a literature student, I confess that we always used to have a love-hate relationship with linguistics because it's not pure literature. It's kind of scientific. So, either students eagerly love it because that paper can give you extra marks. It was a scoring paper, so either students used to love it or they just used to hate it because it's too hard to pass the exam. So this is our stand with linguistics and semiotics. All the papers where there is too much scientific terms and scientific senses induced, this is our stand because like as literature students, we have the liberty of, imparting our own sense, imparting our own meanings to all the things we study. But here it's not possible. And this is the point where I began the seminar because linguistics, it will be too dry, it will be too scientific, it will be too, there will be a lot of jargon. But thanks to Father for making the presentation in a very wonderful manner, in a very simple manner. We all understood what his research was. We all were eager to, know the outcomes of your research. So we look forward to a future session where we will, discuss the future outcomes of your research. And it kept me thinking. That's why I asked about the pandemic question, because you imparted this, contents of this paper in very nice manner. So in a way that I kept thinking about the future or the possible aspects in that field, possible research aspects in that field. So I thank Father for presenting in such a wonderful manner, and I thank the English department for organizing such a wonderful talk, and I thank all the participants of the seminar. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I have a connection to your college, I did my pre-degree exams. Those days, pre-degree, not +2. I did my pre-degree exams in Devamata.
Oh,
Right. Yeah. And I
Father, you did your degree, sir?
I did my pre-degree in Korolangad. Yeah. So I have a
You
connection.
did your degree from? Just curious, Father.
I did my degree in Bangalore.
Okay, Father.
I did
I did my degree from Devamada.
my post graduation together with Sister Fancy, all in Christ.
I did my degree from Devamada.
Okay. So you are the mother student. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that place very well, you know.
I was remembering how Michael sir. Michael sir used to teach us linguistics. It was Michael sir. I don't know whether you remember it. For us, it was Michael sir.
Okay. I remember Nidhiri sir.
You might not know him. And for my PG, it
So-
was Maya, one Professor Maya that.
Okay. Suvarna, I am pretty senior, so
Yeah. No, it's just. No, it's just linguistics that I kept thinking about my teachers who taught me linguistics.
okay, right.
Those terms get me reminded of them.
Okay.
Reminded me of them. That's why I shared that.
Yeah, okay, great. My linguistics, our linguistics teacher is the registrar of Christ University now, Dr. Anil Pinto. Yeah.
And how was your relationship with linguistics as a student? Did you love it or did you used to hate those classes?
As students, we all loved this professor who was teaching us. It was impossible to hate him. And then he respected us. Can you imagine? I still have a regular contact with him. I still communicate with him every Sunday. With that professor. So we keep that kind of a relationship. So it was impossible to hate linguistics at that time. But then at that time, there was no separate learning. Fancy and I were all gathering together, all the out of the 24 students, probably 14, 15, up to 20 people are gathered together after the class hours and discussing these points. So we were some kind of crazy. So we loved linguistics. Practically crazy people.
Thank you, Father.
Great.
And thank you for sharing your personal experiences also.
Right. Yeah, Devamada brings me a lot of memories.
Yeah.
There are some very interesting memories, yeah, which we can share later.
Okay, thank you, Father.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I didn't hear anything from the undergraduate students. They have been knocked out by.
Neha Raji is an undergraduate student. Neha Raji, want to ask you a question?
Neha Raji is okay. Okay, good. All right. Great. It has been a great experience. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Father.
Bye bye.